Everyone looked uncomfortable. Some even looked offended. But Eve wasn't relenting.
Unless, of course, the thief is too scared to be searched. Paige, you should be more careful about the company you keep.
I could feel my heart pounding with anger. She was making a scene, dragging my name through the mud in front of everyone, and no one could stop her.
Eve, enough. This isn't the time or place.
No, Dad, I'm not leaving here until I find my necklace.
Eventually, when her tantrum didn't stop, everyone gave in. One by one, the guests were searched. People muttered under their breath, frustration clear on their faces. And yet, the necklace was nowhere to be found. Eve's face twisted in frustration. When my father remarried, I wanted to be happy for him. He had spent 10 years grieving my mother, and Rachel seemed like a good woman. She was kind, patient, and understanding. She treated my father with warmth, and she never tried to replace my mother in my life. Her daughter, Eve, was a different story. From the moment we met, she made it clear she hated me. She was a year older, but she acted like I was some pest invading her space. I tried to be friendly at first, thinking maybe she just needed time to adjust. But she didn't want a sister. She wanted an enemy.
Just because my mom married your dad doesn't mean we're family. Stay out of my way.
She had said on the first night they moved in. I was shocked and confused because that was the first time we met. I remember how cold her eyes were when she said it, how she didn't even wait for me to reply before slamming her bedroom door. At first, it was little things like ignoring me at the dinner table, rolling her eyes whenever I spoke, slamming doors in my face. Then it got worse. She'd take my clothes from the laundry and hide them, only to return them stained or torn. She'd delete my work from the computer, whispering, "Oops," when I got mad. She lied to her mother constantly, making it seem like I was the one being difficult. Rachel never took sides, but she always gave Eve the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe it's just a misunderstanding, sweetheart. You girls need to learn to get along. Even if you both aren't blood-related, you're still sisters, and you should treat each other well. I don't want you both fighting.
But Eve didn't want to get along. Once, she locked me out of the house on a rainy night while my dad and Rachel were out. I banged on the door for almost an hour before she finally let me in, laughing at my soaked clothes.
You look like a drowned rat.
I tried to tell my dad, but Eve always knew how to twist things.
I thought she had her keys. How was I supposed to know she was locked out? She didn't even knock or try to call me.
My father didn't want tension in the house, so he always brushed it off, saying we needed to work things out. But Eve had no interest in working anything out. She just wanted to make my life miserable. And she succeeded. The worst part was that no one ever saw it but me. To everyone else, she was Rachel's sweet, misunderstood daughter. But to me, she was a nightmare. I kept hoping she would grow out of it, that maybe one day she would just stop. But I was wrong. The little witch was just getting started. She never missed a chance to embarrass me in front of others. If I had friends over, she'd loudly bring up the most humiliating things like times I tripped in public, old crushes, anything to make me uncomfortable. As usual, if I ever stood up for myself, she played the victim.
Why are you always so sensitive, Paige? I was just joking.
She made sure to keep being the perfect daughter in front of Rachel and my dad. If I complained, they'd just tell me I was imagining things.
She's your sister, Paige. She might tease you, but I promise she loves you.
Eve didn't love me. She hated me. By the time we were adults, I learned to pick my battles. She loved getting a reaction out of me, so I stopped giving her one. I focused on my work, my friends, and my dreams. I thought if I ignored her, she'd get bored and move on, but she never did. We didn't have to live under the same roof anymore. We had separate lives. I had a great job, amazing friends, and soon a fiancé. I was happy, and that made her furious. The moment she found out I was engaged, her fake smiles returned. She pretended to be happy for me, telling our parents how wonderful it was. But when we were alone, her real face showed.
You? Getting married? Huh. Poor guy must be desperate.
I ignored her. She was nothing to me now. Or at least, that's what I thought. What I didn't realize was that Eve wasn't just going to sit back and let me have my happiness. She was going to destroy it. She started with a few passive-aggressive comments at family dinners.
Oh dear. Are you sure you're ready for marriage, Paige? You've always been so emotional.
Little digs, just enough to plant doubt in everyone's minds. My dad and Rachel would chuckle awkwardly, not knowing whether to correct her or ignore it. She got bolder. If she caught me alone at events, she'd lower her voice, making sure only I could hear her words.
You know that man is only marrying you for convenience, right? You're just his safe option.
I refused to let her get to me. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to plant doubt, to make me question everything, but I wasn't going to let her ruin this for me. Then she met Nathan for the first time. We were at a family gathering, and I had been dreading the moment Eve would finally cross paths with him. I had seen how she treated the guys I dated in the past. This time was no different. She smiled brightly when I introduced them, acting so friendly you'd think she was my biggest supporter.
Nathan, it's so nice to finally meet you. Paige talks about you all the time.
She reached out for a hug, lingering just a second too long before pulling away. Nathan, being the gentleman he was, didn't seem to notice, but I did. I knew Eve. Over dinner, she started testing him.
So, Nathan, tell me, what made you pick Paige? She's always been particular about things. I'm surprised she hasn't scared you off yet.
I love that about her. She knows what she wants.
Eve gave a laugh, but I saw the slight narrowing of her eyes. She didn't like that he wasn't rattled. She tried again.
Well, marriage is a big deal. I just hope you're ready. Paige isn't exactly the easiest person to live with.
I felt my anger increase, but Nathan didn't take the bait.
Actually, living with her has been the easiest thing in the world. The few times she's at my place, I feel at peace the most.
Eve's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered, flipping her hair back.
Wow, you must be really patient. Good for you.
That was the moment I knew she wasn't going to stop. She had been waiting for Nathan to show a crack, a hint of uncertainty she could exploit, but he didn't give her one. And that made her even more determined to ruin things. Words weren't enough anymore. She wanted to humiliate me. And she picked the perfect moment, my engagement party. Everything was perfect that day. The decoration was beautiful, everywhere was bright, and the music was perfect. I stood beside Nathan, ready to give our speech, and then Eve screamed. The room immediately fell silent, all eyes snapping to where she stood near the entrance, her hands clutching her chest as if she were about to collapse. Her face twisted in horror, and then, to my complete shock, she burst into tears.
Oh my God, my necklace, my expensive necklace, it's gone.
Rachel and my father rushed to her side, both of them looking so concerned.
Eve, sweetheart, calm down. What happened?
Are you sure you didn't misplace it?
Misplace it? Are you kidding me? Someone stole it. I had it in my wallet and now it's gone.
The guests gasped, looking so confused and nervous. I wasn't at ease either.
I just can't believe this. At Paige's engagement party of all places. I guess this is what happens when you associate with shameless thieves.
My stomach dropped. I clenched my fists, heat rushing to my face. She was doing this on purpose, trying to embarrass me in front of everyone.
Eve, let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe someone saw something.
Oh, I don't need to jump to conclusions. We need to search everyone, right now.
Everyone looked uncomfortable. Some even looked offended. But Eve wasn't relenting.
Unless, of course, the thief is too scared to be searched. Paige, you should be more careful about the company you keep.
I could feel my heart pounding with anger. She was making a scene, dragging my name through the mud in front of everyone, and no one could stop her.
Eve, enough. This isn't the time or place.
No, Dad, I'm not leaving here until I find my necklace.
Eventually, when her tantrum didn't stop, everyone gave in. One by one, the guests were searched. People muttered under their breath, frustration clear on their faces. And yet, the necklace was nowhere to be found. Eve's face twisted in frustration.
Fine! Then I'm leaving! I refuse to stay at an event where I'm disrespected like this.
She turned to storm off, but I wasn't about to let her get away with this. Not this time. Wait right there. Eve froze, her shoulders stiffening. I walked up to her, keeping my expression calm even though my blood was boiling. Then, in one swift motion, I reached for her purse. Eve's eyes widened.
Paige, what are you doing?
Ignoring her, I unzipped the purse and turned it upside down. And there, in front of everyone, out fell her precious necklace. The room went dead silent. Eve's face was drained of color.
Eve?
What is the meaning of this?
Eve opened her mouth, but nothing came out. panic flashed in her eyes. She looked around as if searching for an escape. But I stepped forward and without hesitation, I slapped her hard on her face. Eve screamed and stumbled back, holding her cheek. "How dare you? How dare you try to humiliate me on my own engagement day?" Eve's mouth trembled, but she had no excuse, no defense. She had been caught. Then suddenly a pretty girl stepped forward and revealed something shocking. Apparently Eve had hired her to sabotage the engagement by pretending to be Nathan's ex. She even had photoshopped pictures of herself with Nathan. I was stunned. She only confessed after realizing that Eve was a horrible person and that she couldn't go through with the plan. Apologizing sincerely, she turned and left. Rachel's expression was one of complete disappointment. My father shook his head.
You planted it, didn't you? You lied. You humiliated Paige in front of all these people.
No, I don't.
Enough, Eve. Enough lies. I'm so disappointed and embarrassed. How could you do this?
I told them about how she's been acting toward me since the first day she met me. How she's always instigated things and made me a bad person. Nathan also told them how she continuously tried to make him have second thoughts about our relationship. Rachel and my dad were shocked to their bones.
You know what? I'm done making excuses for you.
So am I. You are not my daughter, and I want nothing to do with you anymore. If you could try to ruin Paige's life, I wonder what you'll do to us.
Dad, Paige is the evil one. Don't believe her. She's nothing but a liar and a manipulator. Trust me, Dad.
Don't call me Dad anymore. Not after what you just did. And quit trying to make Paige the bad one.
Eve's eyes darted wildly around the room. The people she had always sought attention from now looked at her with disgust. She was exposed and humiliated. She had no one left to defend her. She turned on her heel and bolted, running out of the venue, pushing past stunned guests. And just like that, she was gone. What she didn't realize was that someone had been live streaming the entire time. My parents apologized to me, and Nathan managed to bring the atmosphere back to normal. We wrapped up the celebration, but the drama didn't end there. After my wedding, Eve reappeared, crying and pleading for forgiveness, finally admitting to all her wrongs. We forgave her, but I refused to have anything to do with her. My parents supported my decision. It wasn't long before we noticed that Eve had become popular for all the wrong reasons. The video of her outburst had gone viral. People labeled her a lunatic, mocking and criticizing her online. She was also fired from her job, and the backlash followed her into real life. She was constantly harassed in her neighborhood, to the point that she left the state. The last we heard, she was flipping burgers at a fast food joint, and no one in the family wanted to associate with her. As for me, my stepmother and father are doing well together, and we've moved on. Even when I gave birth, I refused to let Eve congratulate me. Eventually, she stopped trying to contact me altogether, and I couldn't be more grateful. Thanks for watching.
I held my breath and waited for what was to come. First, she took the phone from Jared. Then she walked over to the window, and finally, she threw the phone as hard as she could.
No phones in class. And don't you think I don't know you stole that, you little burglar?
The money for that came out of my dad's pension.
Liar. People like you don't get pensions.
My dad was a war hero.
Get out of my classroom. This isn't a zoo, and I won't have you behaving like monkeys. Get out!
Jared stayed still, and the whole class was silent, staring at Ms. Carter. She'd said and done a lot of racist things before, but this was the worst thing she'd ever said. My name is Malik, and I'm 15. I'm in high school right now, and it's been hell these past few months. See, we have this teacher called Ms. Carter. She teaches maths, which is already a tough subject for most, but she made life in her classes impossibly hard. And she made it painfully clear that she was racist. Her treatment of the white kids was completely different from how she treated the black kids. Ms. Carter taught us all at that age how unfair life could be, and how little interest some people have in acting like decent human beings. I'll give you some examples. In our first ever maths class at the new high school, Ms. Carter paused on all of the names of the black children, and then sounded them out like some kid of kindergartner learning the alphabet. It should have made her look stupid, but it just made us feel separated from the class.
These names are very, how shall I put it, unconventional. Foreign. Let's see if I get this right. Mal, Eek, Mal, Ek, Mal, Ik?
It's pronounced Malik, Ms. Carter.
Does that sound like anyone's name? How revolting that a child was brought up to behave with such appalling manners, as if Carter isn't a normal name. Detention for the week. You can serve it with the filth that work in the cafeteria.
That's not nice. My mom works in the cafeteria.
Yes, well, judging by the color of your skin, I'm not surprised.
In the beginning, we were all so angry that we exploded into complaints, but then she threatened us.
If I hear a word more, I'll make sure the police search your lockers so hard that they're bound to find evidence of drug dealing.
Are you threatening us?
Not if you keep your filthy mouths shut.
Naturally, we felt trapped. We were just kids looking to get through school, like everyone else. We just also had to deal with one teacher in the school that wanted to make things more difficult for us. By the end of our first semester, the whole school knew that Ms. Carter was racist and hateful, but no one felt like they could do anything. Whenever class was done, she will ask Jared or me to carry her bag and follow her. In class, she made us feel small and stupid at every opportunity.
In this equation, can anybody tell me what x equals?
I put my hand up. Ms. Carter smirked.
Malik?
By now, we'd all learned to grit our teeth and ignore her purposeful mispronunciation. It was hurtful, but it didn't matter. I wanted to learn. X equals 6 over 7.
Idiot boy. It's 6 over 7. No wonder your parents gave you a name like that. They knew you will be dumb.
That's what I said.
Are you talking back to me? That's it. It's a week in the cafeteria cleaning up during lunch break. It's good practice for where you'll end up. With your brains and your attitude, you can't hope for much better.
Jared was humiliated too, by having his mother's job constantly bashed by the teacher. His dad had died in the war several years before, and so his mom was a single mother working hard to keep her kids in school and well-fed. For Jared, and for every other black kid in my school, I felt fury towards Ms. Carter. In my second year of high school, I decided to do something about it. I needed better grades for when I started to think about college, and I was so close to failing her class. We all were. She was always grading us lower than the rubric demanded. My mother didn't understand, and I felt scared to tell her what was happening. The amount of homework she set us was growing and growing, until I couldn't keep up with my other class assignments. I was losing sleep. I was losing my mind. My English teacher gave me my first B and asked if I was okay. My gym teacher took me to the side and asked if I was having problems sleeping. My science professor handed me an energy drink and asked whether I thought I could use with a few days rest. It was only going to get worse from there. I didn't want anyone else to be in my position, so I knew it was time to take action. So I started secretly filming her.
Who knows the answer to the equation on the board?
I put my hand up. My phone was positioned carefully on the desk so that I could catch the unfolding events.
Malik, I'm not looking to have my time wasted. Do you really know the answer, or are you going to embarrass yourself again?
I know the answer, Ms. Carter. Honest.
Fine. Get up here and prove me right. Children, watch and learn how not to do maths.
I felt the whole class's eyes on my back as I went up to the board and picked up the pen. I worked my way through the equation with shaking hands. I knew how to do the work. I studied harder in maths than any other subject. I was confident that I wouldn't make a mistake. But her reactions were usually so unpredictable that I was scared of what she might do. It didn't matter if I were right or wrong. There would be repercussions. Finished.
Wrong.
But Ms. Carter, you didn't even look.
I don't need to look. Children like you don't understand maths. If you did, your families wouldn't be poor. That's just fact.
Abigail, the prettiest girl in class, put her hand up.
Ms. Carter, I don't understand why it's wrong. It looks right to me.
Abigail was white, so Ms. Carter never talked badly to her. But today, I could see that she felt like her limits were being pushed. She glared over at Abigail, biting her tongue as she tried to figure out how to answer. Then, instead of talking through the problem, she tripped and erased it from the board.
Oh no, I guess we'll never know.
That's okay, Ms. Carter. I took a photograph. I wasn't sure what was going to come from this, but I didn't think it was going to be good. I held my breath and waited for what was to come. First, she took the phone from Jared. Then she walked over to the window, and finally, she threw the phone as hard as she could.
No phones in class. And don't you think I don't know you stole that, you little burglar?
The money for that came out of my dad's pension.
Liar. People like you don't get pensions.
My dad was a war hero.
Get out of my classroom. This isn't a zoo, and I won't have you behaving like monkeys. Get out!
Jared stayed still, and the whole class was silent, staring at Ms. Carter. She'd said and done a lot of racist things before, but this was the worst thing she'd ever said. It was the closest thing she'd ever come to actually saying something so racist. I did the only thing I could think of. I stopped my video, rewound it, and played it back.
I won't have you behaving like monkeys.
The whole class turned to face me, and Ms. Carter went pale. She stalked towards me like a lion approaching its prey and tried to snatch my phone. I held it out of her reach, but that just made her angrier. She grabbed my arm and tried to drag me out of the room. More phones came out and started filming her. She was bathed in the bright white light of the camera's flash.
Put your phones away.
Not while you're assaulting a student. It's our word against yours, but with video evidence, it's you against the law, Ms. Carter.
I'd let go now, if I were you. She dropped my arm and backed away. The cameras followed her, and she ran out of the classroom in a panic. The whole room erupted into cheers. I hope we never see her again. Me too, but I know a way we can get our own back. I talked with Abigail and got her to send me the video footage. I then went around the school and talked to every black kid that had Ms. Carter as their maths teacher. I got stories from everyone. I thought our class had it bad, but I quickly learned I wasn't the only kid she'd laid hands on. One boy she repeatedly smacked over the back of his head. Another she would pour water on to wash him. That righteous ball of fire in the pit of my stomach grew to astronomical proportions and took over my entire being. My evidence was enough to get her fired, but I wanted her to suffer more. She deserved to be humiliated, which is what she did to us all those months in her class. See, I had enough evidence now to ensure she was put in jail for months, if not years. She wasn't about to get away with this. I sent her an email, and in it, I told her that if she didn't do our homework for the rest of the year, we'd send the evidence to the police. She came into the school the day before she was fired and pulled me into a closet. She broke down, crying and begging for mercy, pleading with me not to get her fired. She fell to her knees, gripping my t-shirt, snot and tears running down her face. I yanked my shirt from her hands. The next day, I still reported everything to the head teacher, and Ms. Carter was fired. However, I blackmailed her, warning that if she didn't comply with all my demands, I would take the evidence of physical abuse to the police, which could land her in prison for years. I could see that she understood exactly what that meant. She knew that if she went to prison and the inmates found out why she was there, she would be dealt with. In prison, she'd be hurt and humiliated, way worse than what we could do at a high school. She listened to my deal and nodded, still crying. Soon, she'd learn the reality of the consequences of her actions. So here was the deal we made with her. She was to take our homework and complete it for us. Without the insane workload she'd set for us, things were getting back to normal. I didn't let her know that, though. I made up homework to add to her workload. The other kids did, too.
It's too much. I don't have time to sleep.
You're right. I'm sure you'll rest much easier in a prison bed.
No, I'm sorry. I won't complain.
I knew we'd gotten her, but it wasn't enough. What happened next was really the cherry on top of the cake. Because she'd broken Jared's phone, part of the deal was for her to replace it. But in doing so, she lost a lot of her savings. By this point, she was known everywhere in town as the biggest racist, and anywhere she got a job, she was fired because customers refused to go. She wasn't allowed to teach anywhere anymore, so she got desperate. Fortunately, some people understand what a hard time looks like, and they go out of their way to make things easier.
Well, Ms. Carter, there's one job you can do.
Really?
Yes, I need a new fry cook. And when you've finished cooking the food, you can serve it. Here's your apron, here's your hairnet, here are your gloves. Remember, the customers are always right, so make sure you're extra nice to the students, okay? And when they've finished eating, you can go around and clean the room. I saw how you made them do that for detention. Let's see how you like it.
That was the best part. Seeing Ms. Carter wearing that same uniform she once laughed at, serving food to the same kids she used to humiliate. Sometimes we'd stay after everyone left and we'd spill our drinks on the floor. "Hey Carter, you missed a spot." Ms. Carter looked at the juice on the floor, let her shoulders sag, and simply nodded. Good. She deserved to be broken. Thanks for watching.
My name is Nancy. I'm a well-respected police officer in my town. I wasn't always well-respected, though. In fact, I only got that way because I finally stood up to my family and called them out for their behavior. Growing up, I learned early on that life wasn't fair. My parents had a golden child, my brother, James. And then they had me, the unwanted extra. James got everything he wanted: new clothes, the best toys, vacations. Me, I was an afterthought. If I asked for something, I got a lecture about being ungrateful. If I spoke up, I was disrespectful. If James made a mistake, it was swept under the rug. But if I so much as breathed wrong, I was the villain. There are a million examples of this, and remembering them hurts like a punch in the gut. Our birthdays were always a stark reminder, like for James's 10th birthday. I had turned 8 just 1 month before and had gotten nothing from my family. I came downstairs the morning of his birthday and saw that the living room was piled high with brightly wrapped boxes.
Whoa! Look at all these gifts.
Only the best for our little star. Open this one first, sweetheart.
And after cake, we have a special surprise. Your new bike. No way! You guys are the best.
Mom, Dad, you didn't get me anything last month for my birthday.
Oh, sweetheart, we were just so busy. You know how life gets.
Besides, birthdays aren't about gifts, Nancy. It's about family. Now let's focus on James. He only turns 10 once.
I sat on the sofa, trying my best to hold back tears, as James excitedly ripped through his gifts, shouting at each new gift. Each gift he got was one more than what my parents had thought to get me. Birthdays were one kind of hurt, but other occasions came close. Like one time when I was 9. It was a stormy day, and the school was completely empty except for my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Carter. She sat on the chair beside me in the doorway of the school.
Are you sure your mom said she was coming?
She always comes.
This is the 5th time this year that she's been so late, and we're only in the 2nd week.
When I talked again, my voice was trembling. It's because James doesn't go to our school anymore. He's in middle school now.
Let's try calling them again.
I've tried. They don't answer.
Let me have a go.
Mrs. Carter pulled out her work phone and dialed my mom's number. She kept the phone ringing, and after a few minutes, someone picked up.
Hello, it's Mrs. Carter here, your daughter's teacher. Nancy is sitting here and she insists that you were supposed to pick her up. But it's 2 hours after all the other kids have gone home, and she's still here. Nancy? Oh my goodness, I completely forgot. James had his soccer game today.
I didn't know that I could feel worse, but my parents were always quick to alter my expectations. But that hurt. You forgot I existed.
Don't be dramatic, Nancy. I'll send your dad.
I wasn't being dramatic. She had definitely forgotten that I existed. They were probably out celebrating James's soccer games, whether he won or lost, and hadn't noticed or cared that their daughter was absent. When my dad came to pick me up, he'd complained about being taken away from celebrating James's team's win.
Why couldn't you have just walked home?
I didn't say anything. I just kept my head down the whole drive home and hid myself in my room. If that wasn't bad enough, about a year on, James had failed a maths test. My parents brought it up over dinner. I was sitting down, staring at my cold food, and listening as my parents started to question my brother. James was never in trouble. My hands were cold because I knew that somehow they'd turn this on to me.
James, your teachers called and told us that you'd failed your maths test. What on earth happened?
It was a really hard test.
We give you everything you need, James. Tutors, support. There's no excuse for this.
That's when my father turned to look at me.
You're his sister. Why weren't you helping him study?
Me? I have my own schoolwork. He never asked me for help.
You should have seen he was struggling. A good sister would have stepped in.
I could see James smirking, but he straightened out his expression when our parents looked back at him. Maybe he should take responsibility for himself.
Watch your tone, young lady. We do everything for this family, and you just sit there with an attitude.
I was so frustrated that I stood up and glared at my mother and father. No, you do everything for James. I'm just the one you blame when he screws up.
Nancy, sit down this instant.
I went straight to my room. I couldn't deal with them. I needed to be on my own for a while. Just a month later, we were once again at the dinner table. I'd had a long day. I'd woken up early to put my PE kit through the wash because my parents had left it out to make sure it didn't sully James' basketball jersey. Then, I had to run to school and completely miss breakfast because my parents wanted to take James first. But I already had so many late notices. Middle school were a lot less forgiving than elementary, and since James was in high school, those easy days when they would drop us both off at the same place were long gone. At lunch, I had to complete my maths homework that I had missed the night before because James had cut the electricity, and so I didn't have internet. Meaning, by dinner, I was starving. I watched as my mother loaded James's plate full of food. I had a slip of steak and an even smaller serving of mashed potatoes. Mother, could I please have some more?
There's not enough to go around. James needs his strength.
You could probably do with losing some weight anyway.
I could feel that I was getting to the edge. I was losing all patience with my family. I think the final blow came when James graduated high school. That night, after a dinner they'd forgotten to invite me to, Mother, Father, and James were sitting in the living room. What are you guys looking at?
Oh, just old pictures. James was such an adorable baby, huh?
What about me? Where are my baby pictures? My mom made a show of flipping through the pages and making a face.
I don't think we have any.
What? That's impossible. There has to be some.
Well, we were so busy with James. He was always running around getting into things. We must have forgotten.
That blow was devastating. I thought that was the worst it could get. One day, when I was 17, things hit rock bottom, proving me wrong. It was another birthday. James's 17th, just 1 month after my sweet 16. James was let outside with a blindfold on.
You're ungrateful, Nancy. You don't respect this family.
I just asked why James got a car for his birthday, and I didn't even get a cake for mine.
Because James deserves it. Unlike you, he actually makes us proud.
This is too much. You've done nothing for me. You've been cruel to me my entire life, and you think you can just tell me I never make you proud? That's because you never care about the things I do.
You know what? That's it. I want you out.
You can't be serious.
You've been nothing but trouble. Always talking back. Always causing problems. We're done, Nancy.
James needs a peaceful home. You being here, well, it's just not working out.
My mom went upstairs and threw all my things in a suitcase and tossed it down the stairs.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Just like that. No real goodbye, no second chances. I had nowhere to go, but I swore to myself one thing. I would never crawl back to them. Fast forward 10 years, I made it. I put myself through school, became an FBI agent, and built a life that had nothing to do with them. I hadn't spoken to my family since the day they threw me out. But later, I heard rumors that my brother had spiraled into gambling and drugs, drowning our parents in debt, even though they still had faith he would make it in life. And then, one night, everything came full circle. Apparently, there had been an ongoing case the FBI was working on, a lone jewelry thief who had been terrorizing the state. We had been trying to catch him for a while. One night, I got a call about an active heist. When we showed up, the thief escaped through a window. I took off after him with Jasper, a dangerous canine dog, by my side. When I got close, I pointed my gun at him and shouted, "Take one more step and I'll pull the trigger." That's when he froze and slowly turned around.
Oh.
Drop the bag. Now,
Nancy, listen.
drop the bag. For once in his life, James actually listened. He dropped the bag, raised his hands, and went to his knees. But he wasn't scared. He smirked at me like he had an ace up his sleeve.
Come on, sis. You're not really gonna arrest me, are you?
You think you're getting special treatment?
I'm your brother.
Yeah? Where was that brotherly love when I was on the streets? He opened his mouth, but I wasn't interested. I cuffed him, read him his rights, and hauled him to the station. Our parents came in not long after.
Nancy, sweetheart, you arrested your brother by mistake, right?
No mistake. He was caught red-handed.
You don't understand. This could ruin his life.
He ruined his own life. He's a criminal.
Oh, stop being dramatic. Just don't testify. Say the evidence was wrong, Nancy.
You're out of your minds.
Nancy, after everything we did for you, you owe us.
That was it. That was the moment the last thread holding me to them snapped. Owe you? You mean when you kicked me out? When you made it clear James was the only child that mattered? No, I don't owe you anything, and I'm going to make sure James gets exactly what he deserves. And I did. I testified and watched as the jury found him guilty and saw the look of horror on my parents' faces as the judge handed down the sentence, 15 years. After the verdict, my parents tried one last time.
Please, he's family.
So was I. Didn't seem to matter back then.
You've changed. You're cruel.
No, I just stopped letting you control me. James went to prison. My parents lost their influence when people found out they tried to pressure a federal agent to commit perjury. They were blacklisted from their social circles, their business partners dropped them, and their perfect little world crumbled. Meanwhile, I was celebrated. My department praised me for my integrity. The media ate up the story of the agent who took down her own brother. James was sent to prison, and that favoritism he'd enjoyed his whole life was turned back on him. He went in expecting to be treated like a king, but was instead sentenced to a life as a servant. The bigger, scarier prisoners quickly saw his weakness and took advantage. So before long, James was serving them their food, making their beds, washing their clothes, all while the other prisoners laughed at him for thinking he was going to be a king inside the prison. As for my parents, they started threatening me, hurling insults about how I had betrayed the family and even tried turning other relatives against me. But instead, I recorded their calls and used them as evidence, leading to their swift arrest and a 1-year prison sentence for threatening the life of an FBI agent. Subscribe, or I'll arrest you like I did James.
Honestly, no, sir, I don't. I definitely wasn't speeding. You think so? Well, you're wrong. You were going over the speed limit by 20 kilometers per hour. No, I wasn't. Well, I'm not lying. As a police officer, it is my job to uphold the law. So listen, you can pay half the fine now or the entire amount when you go to court. The ticket is $600. I only have $50 on me. Well, that isn't remotely enough. You need to take this seriously. Suddenly, the officer went around to the front of my car and took out his baton and smashed one of my front lights with it. You see, if you don't pay, then stuff like that happens. So now how much money do you have on you? I began to panic even more. I really only had $50 on me, and I wasn't sure what he was going to do to me when I revealed that. I'm sorry, but I really only have $50. Hey there. So I witnessed something I could not believe would happen outside of a movie. Honestly, I'm still amazed that someone could be so incredibly stupid but also clever. Here, let me explain. I was driving home from work one night, and I was very tired, so I really wasn't paying that close attention to how fast I was going. I was actually just keeping up with traffic when suddenly I heard the sounds of a police siren and saw flashing lights. My heart sank as I realized that I was getting pulled over by a cop. Reluctantly, I pulled over though and put my car in park and waited for the police officer to come over and speak with me. Looking through my mirrors at the cop car, I couldn't help but think that the police car looked a bit odd. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something about it seemed unusual. After a couple minutes, the cop got out and walked over to my car. Hey there, do you know why I pulled you over? Not really, officer. I was just on my way home from work. I don't think I was breaking any laws. Well, you would be wrong. My radar gun told me that you were going 30 kilometers per hour over the speed limit. What? There's no way I was going that fast. Are you calling me a liar? No, of course not. Well, you were. Now I'm going to write you a ticket for $850. No, please don't. I can't afford to pay that. Is that so? Well, step out of the car, please. I was in a panic, and so I did everything that I was told to, and I stepped out of my car. Well, how much money do you have on you? Well, I just got paid yesterday, so I have about $250 on me, but I need it for my bills. Well, you have two options. You can either give it to me, and we can cancel this ticket right here and now, or I can write you up, and then you'll have to book a day off of work, and then pay $850. It's your choice. Can't you just let me off with a warning? That was when the cop threw me up against my car and lifted me off the ground by my shirt. Terrified what he might do next, I quickly grabbed my wallet and offered him the money, which he took, and then he drove off. The whole exchange felt completely weird, both because I had never heard of a cop demanding money for a ticket on the spot, but also threatening someone to pay as well. It felt very shady. The next day at work, I told some of my coworkers about what happened to me, and more than a few of them mentioned that something very similar happened to them on that stretch of highway. One of them even said that the guy's name was Officer Dudley and that he had pulled my coworker over and demanded that he give him $400 or else he would be arrested on the spot. Of course, my coworker paid as he didn't want to have a criminal record, but the whole ordeal left him feeling very confused. It still didn't make sense, but knowing that I wasn't the only one to experience such a thing made me feel at least a bit less targeted. But again, hearing that my coworker was threatened to pay the fine or face jail felt odd. Again, it just felt nice to know that I wasn't the only one. That day, on my way home from work, I made sure to follow the speed limit, but in the same area that I was pulled over the previous time. I saw a cop car pull out and get behind me. When the siren went on and the lights were flashing, I was incredibly confused. After all, I wasn't speeding, so I wasn't sure why he had pulled me over. "Sir, do you know why I pulled you over?" "Honestly, no, sir, I don't. I definitely wasn't speeding." "You think so? Well, you're wrong. You were going over the speed limit by 20 kilometers per hour. "No, I wasn't." "Well, I'm not lying. As a police officer, it is my job to uphold the law. So listen, you can pay half the fine now or the entire amount when you go to court. The ticket is $600. "I only have $50 on me." "Well, that isn't remotely enough. You need to take this seriously." Suddenly, the officer went around to the front of my car and took out his baton and smashed one of my front lights with it. You see, if you don't pay, then stuff like that happens. So now how much money do you have on you? I began to panic even more. I really only had $50 on me, and I wasn't sure what he was going to do to me when I revealed that. "I'm sorry, but I really only have $50. "You worthless idiot. Fine. Give me the $50 and be on your way. But don't let me catch you driving up and down this highway anytime soon, or else I'll make sure you regret it." Terrified, I gave him the money I had on me and then sped away as quickly as I could. When I got home, I was shaking so much. However, it finally dawned on me. I could report him to his superiors. After all, no cop should be behaving the way that he was. He was acting above and beyond what he should, and so I called up the police station to file a formal complaint. When I called, they told me that no such Officer Dudley was employed by them, and that they had received several complaints about a man masquerading as a police officer, but that he wasn't one. They began to ask me questions about where I had seen him and what he looked like. I gave them the best description I could, and then told them that I had just seen him less than an hour ago, and that I was fairly certain that I knew the stretch of highway where I had been stopped by him twice. They told me that they would send out some undercover cops immediately. I waited 2 minutes, and then suddenly 2 unmarked cars pulled up near me, and some police officers that were wearing simple everyday clothes got out. They showed me their badges and identification in order to prove that they were who they said they were. They then went on to say that they needed me to go down that stretch of highway where I had seen Officer Dudley and to be speeding when I do to lure him out. The undercover police would be following me at a safe distance, and when Dudley will make his move, that they would arrest him. I was uncertain, but it kind of sounded exciting to help the police catch this man who was impersonating them and harassing the public. And so I agreed, and within a few more minutes, I was driving down the highway, making sure to be speeding when I passed the area where I had seen Dudley before, and sure enough, I saw his car behind me with the sirens and lights going. As before, I pulled over and got ready for him to try to extort me for more money. And the second that he got out of his car and walked towards mine, the undercover cops pulled up behind him and jumped out and began to chase him. Frightened by this turn of events, Dudley turned and ran out into the woods that were on the side of the highway, and the cops chased after him. Alone by the highway, I grabbed a knife from the toolbox that I keep in the trunk of my car, and I punctured all of the tires on Dudley's fake police car, and then I went back to my own car. Just as I was about to get back into my own car, I saw Dudley jump out of the forest and ran straight to his car. As he jumped inside and hit the gas, the car swerved and drove a bit erratically. Seconds later, the police emerged from the forest as well, and then seeing Dudley try to drive away, they too jumped into their cars and chased after him. Of course, with all 4 tires flat, Dudley wasn't able to drive well, and he almost hit an old woman crossing the road. Dudley didn't make it very far, and the police used their cars to box him in and prevent him from driving away. Once his car was stopped, they smashed his windows and dragged him out of the car. From where I was, I could see him resisting arrest and fighting back, which made the actual police become more aggressive, and they used their batons to subdue him by beating him to pulp. He looked very black and blue, and was bleeding by the time that they were able to get handcuffs on him. Once he was in the back of a police car, the officers told me that I was free to go, but that they may need me to be a witness later during Dudley's trial. I agreed and went home, and I couldn't help but wonder what was to happen. A couple of weeks passed, and then I was contacted to appear in court. During the trial, I testified and spoke about my interactions with Dudley. After I did, the lawyers prosecuting the fake cop called in over 24 other people who all gave similar testimonies as I did. Apparently, he had been running this scam for weeks and was only caught because I called the real police on him. But during those weeks, Dudley had stolen tens of thousands of dollars from people and had physically assaulted many of them as well. If I hadn't called the police, then there is no telling how much longer his reign of terror would have lasted. In the end, the judge heard all the testimonies and ordered Dudley to pay back all the money that he had stolen from people plus interest. He then sentenced him to 20 years in prison for the crimes of impersonating an officer, assault, theft, extortion, and for resisting arrest as well. I was so relieved that he was facing such a harsh punishment, although I had never heard of anyone pulling something like that ever before. It was so outlandish, and I had never considered that someone would be so brazen as to pretend to be a cop to scam people out of their money. At least he is now behind bars and can't hurt or scam anyone else anymore. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Hey there, boy. What are you doing here?
Hello, sir. I'm just doing some shopping.
Is that right? What are those sticks for? You planning on robbing this store?
No, sir. I would never do that. These are my crutches. I have a disability. His eyes narrowed at me, and he lightly kicked one of my crutches.
Seems to me like maybe I should search your pockets and make sure that you aren't stealing anything.
He then pushed my crutches aside and started patting me down. It was so incredibly embarrassing. When he found my wallet, he pulled it out and began rifling through it, and then pulled out my money. I wasn't sure if he was going to take my money for a second, to be honest.
This isn't a lot of money. How do I know that you weren't going to steal something?
I would never steal anything. You can ask the owner. I come here all the time.
You think I would believe the word of some black kid?
Hi there. My name is Tim, and I've had a bit of a challenging life. I was born with cerebral palsy, and it has made moving around quite difficult, but my mother has always been able to inspire me and keep me motivated to keep going. Honestly, if it wasn't for her, I'm not so sure that I would be as outgoing and strong as I am. Of course, that isn't to say that I haven't had my fair share of setbacks. For starters, the children in school always tease and torment me. I need to use crutches to get around, and the children at my school often tease me about them. Being 16 and having cerebral palsy is not easy, and the bullies at school make sure that I never get too comfortable. There was one time when a classmate of mine, Chad, attacked me and stole my crutches from me.
Oh, well, look at that. Poor little Tim decided to come to school today. I can't believe that they let you just walk into our school with those. Don't they know that they could very easily be used as weapons?
They aren't weapons, Chad. I need them in order to be able to walk. They were prescribed to me by my doctor.
As if. I have no doubt that as a black kid that you just stole them off of someone who is actually crippled. I know that your brain is messed up, but you don't look like you need those crutches. I bet you can walk around just fine without them.
Well, you would be wrong. My leg muscles and spine can't support me, so I need them. Now please just leave me alone. I'm trying to get to class.
Typical black kid, always lying. My dad told me all about how you people just can't help it.
As if saying such hurtful things wasn't enough, he grabbed my crutches away from me and then pushed me to the ground. It was so incredibly painful, but I couldn't fight back. He then walked away with my crutches and just laughed at me. Thankfully, some other students saw what he had done and ran after him, and eventually got my crutches back, and so I was able to make my way to class. Sadly, that wasn't the first time that Chad had picked on me. He was such a terror, and I could only imagine how bad his father must be, since he was obviously the one teaching Chad how to be a bully. As limiting as my disability can be, though, I always try to do things on my own as much as possible. One day, I was heading down to get a few things from the corner store. We needed some bread and milk, and while it wasn't some of the most important things in the world, it made me feel needed to help out as much as possible. And so, I went down to the store, and as I was gathering up the few things I needed, I noticed a police officer standing at the counter talking to the owner. I waited behind him for my turn, but he was taking forever until he finally noticed me. His eyes went up and down as he carefully looked at my crutches.
Hey there, boy. What are you doing here?
Hello, sir. I'm just doing some shopping.
Is that right? What are those sticks for? You planning on robbing this store?
No, sir. I would never do that. These are my crutches. I have a disability. His eyes narrowed at me, and he lightly kicked one of my crutches.
Seems to me like maybe I should search your pockets and make sure that you aren't stealing anything.
He then pushed my crutches aside and started patting me down. It was so incredibly embarrassing. When he found my wallet, he pulled it out and began rifling through it, and then pulled out my money. I wasn't sure if he was going to take my money for a second, to be honest.
This isn't a lot of money. How do I know that you weren't going to steal something?
I would never steal anything. You can ask the owner. I come here all the time.
You think I would believe the word of some black kid?
The way that he said it made me pause for a second. I suddenly had a suspicion that this cop was my bully's father, and sure enough, a few seconds later, Chad walked into the store.
Hey Dad, what's taking so long? Just found this suspicious black kid and was making sure that he wasn't going to cause any trouble. So boy, are you going to cause any trouble?
No, sir. I just came to buy a few groceries, and then I was going to go straight home.
Wait, I know this kid from school. He's always getting into trouble there. Picking fights and stealing things from other students. You better arrest him, Dad. See, I knew it. Just like I always say, son, you can't trust their kind. Get on the ground now, boy.
Chad had always been cruel, but for him to lie and say those things about me felt like a new low for him. I was terrified, and I knew that I needed to obey the cop, or else he might get violent with me. But I was so scared that I became paralyzed and stood still. Suddenly, Chad shoved me to the ground, and while I was lying there, the cop put handcuffs on me.
Okay, son, you keep an eye on him. I'm going out to the car to radio in for a patrol car to take him downtown. I will, Dad. No need to rush, though.
As soon as his father stepped outside, Chad began kicking me while I was on the ground and couldn't defend myself. I wondered why the store owner wasn't doing anything, when suddenly he came around the counter and started shouting at Chad to stop.
Listen, I don't want any trouble, but this kid didn't do anything. I see him all the time, and he's one of the most honest customers I have. Yeah, well, unless you want to go to jail as well. I suggest you mind your own damn business.
Just then, Chad's father came back inside and picked me up and dragged me outside. Chad picked up my crutches, and once we were outside, he snapped them in half. His father just laughed at what Chad had done, and then he began to pad me down again.
Oh, look what I found here, a knife and a ski mask. I guess you were planning on something after all. It's a good thing that I was there, or else you were going to rob the place, weren't you?
No, I would never do that. Plus, I couldn't. My arms aren't strong enough to hurt anyone else. You planted that knife and mask on me.
Maybe I did, but it's your word against ours, and no judge is going to believe you.
They just started laughing when a police squad car pulled up, and the officers inside took a look at me and then gently put me into the back of the car and drove me downtown. I could tell that they really didn't want to arrest me, but Chad's father insisted that they did. I ended up being thrown into a holding cell with several adult criminals. Amazingly, they noticed that I was having a hard time moving around, and they showed me compassion and helped me to sit up and get comfortable. After a few hours, my mother showed up, and after spending several hours talking with the police, she was allowed to take me home. On the ride there, I told her everything that had happened, and she was beyond furious. She told me that she would take care of everything, but I wasn't about to let her do all the hard work. There was no way that I was going to let Chad and his father get away with what they had done to me. It was bad enough for Chad to be racist and cruel to me, but now his father a police officer as well. Something had to be done. The next day, even though I was sore, I went back to the convenience store and I spoke with the clerk that had tried to defend me. He apologized for not being able to help me more. I accepted the apology, as he really didn't have a choice. If he had intervened, then he would have probably been arrested too. Instead, I asked him if the cameras caught any of what happened on tape. He smiled broadly and pulled out a flash drive from under the counter and passed it to me, and told me that not only did the cameras record what happened in the store, but also what happened outside as well, and the recording included audio. I thanked him and then went home and made a few copies of the files on the flash drive. I then uploaded the files onto a few social media sites along with the caption, racist cop, and son attack innocent disabled black boy. Once I had done that, I asked my mom to go down to the police station to file a complaint against Chad's father and to press charges against the both of them for what they did to me. At first, the officers there were hesitant, but once they looked at the recordings I had, they changed their tune and began asking more questions. When I finally left, they were making plans to haul Chad and his father to the station for questioning. By then, the story was beginning to go viral on the social media sites that I had posted it to, and people began demanding something be done to Chad and his father. The public wanted blood, and they wanted those two men to pay for hurting me the way they did. Between the public demanding that justice be done and the evidence that I had provided to the police, they were forced to arrest both Chad and his father. Since Chad was a minor like me, he was sent to juvenile hall and was forced to do over 1,000 hours of community service. From what I heard, once he was released from juvenile hall, he and his mother moved across the country to try to start new lives since people continued to harass him, even though he had spent 2 years locked up. His father fared much worse though. He lost his job and was sentenced to spend 8 years in prison for abusing his power, and for not only letting his son assault me, but encouraging it as well. Being a cop in prison is a very dangerous thing, and he was nearly beaten to death a few times as well. One time, an inmate that was sent to prison because of him had stabbed him, but he luckily survived and now lives in fear. As for me, I learned a very hard lesson from this experience, and I swore that I would use it to help others. I have since attended law school, and I have become a lawyer to help those people that have become victims of people like Chad and his father. So although the experience traumatized me, it has helped me to become a stronger person and has given me the strength to help others. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.